Okay, okay. Well, good afternoon, good afternoon. I'm Crimson Skies. Welcome, welcome. This is mainly for the team I'm with right now with the Boomer Shooters, my Silver League stuff. I'm actually not able to watch the demo. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like those kind of matches have like a saved system anywhere in the game for me to be able to take advantage of and watch the demo. So this is mainly stuff based off of just the conversations I had with everybody about the difficulty we were having. And then on top of that, I kind of want a video to give a rough idea on sort of what I want everybody to kind of be able to do instead of those little snippets where I have to rush and kind of try and get these things really condensed. I want to be able to break down everything so that you guys kind of understand the concept of why I want you guys to do the things I want you to do, so that you can kind of play vary depending on how the CTs play. And you know, there's a lot of stuff to it, right? So we're gonna kind of break down to the kind of the biggest issue that we were having, um, which was Jayco's shelf molly, which was Jayco's shelf molly. He was saying he was moving too slow. Personally, I think it's just because he didn't practice it. So, because I think that's a couple of seconds, and then he's able to hold this, and then let kind of Dylan do his thing, support Dylan, and then Dylan throws a pop flash. He kind of focuses this as Dylan covers the corners, and then when they get out here, then he can start throwing flashes too, right? To kind of allow them to get out on the site and to be able to, do their thing. But, um, you know, we already kind of talked about it. I feel like Jacob's got a better understanding of it, but just so people know, I do have an alternative in case. Line here, da da da, throw, bam. Now, one of the things that really kind of sucks is that sometimes they can throw a really deep molly. I'm not particularly, I don't know all the instant smokes. I know like this one, if you go against a wall, even then I did it wrong, right? Actually, to be honest, that's kind of ideal for me, because then we can kind of take advantage of going up shelf and stuff like that, maybe a little deeper, admittedly. But sometimes it gets really deep, right? Sometimes they can throw a really deep smoke. And I wasn't able to see my initial lineup, and I was having a lot of difficulty being able to support it. That's kind of why we transitioned to Jaco doing it, but now I can just do this, right? I got one that's far enough out, but as you can tell, it's right on the line, right? But I mean, I don't really know. That's too far. I don't think that's gonna molly. Okay, got it. Okay. Still, I mean, it's something I still need to work on. Okay, but once again, if they throw a deep molly, my current reference would be kind of in jeopardy, right? And that's one of the problems that I was having was because my initial reference point was already like way up here. I was using this. Okay, but of course, if a smoke goes deep, that's instantly smoked, so I'm now using this one. But that's just, that's kind of that. I'll probably throw that early on if they throw the smoke. If they don't throw the smoke, that obviously would expose me, so I'd have to have Jake would do it. That's just something we'll have to communicate on, of course. But oh, I threw it wrong. My goodness. But I want to I want to talk about kind of everything, right? I want to talk about everything, kind of everyone's intended roles and the idea behind it, and kind of the reason why I want people to play. I want them to play so that people kind of understand how I'd like us to play this as a default on T side, right? So obviously we know our roles. Anthony kind of plays A. He's initially early on he's gonna just be holding. I don't want him to go in too far, just in case they rush mid with it because it's an eco or something, and he has to support me. He can sit here, he can hold this, and then fall back if need be, right? But this is early on. This is early on. This is kind of the initial early round phase. I could do this if they smoke, right? That means I can safely line up my molly. Not that, of course. I can safely line up the molly. If they don't throw a smoke, I'm basically holding this with an op or an AK or whatever I have available to me, right? And then if we choose to do like any execute, but these are like later on. I can throw a CT smoke while Anthony can throw the donut smoke here. We can kind of work on that stuff. But the The idea is for me to be able to make sure they don't, like, I don't make it easy for them to take shelf. Okay, so if they do smoke, yes. I'm going to make it sort of my responsibility early on. If they don't smoke, then I'm going to have Jaco throw the molly. Is the idea, right? Me initially, if they smoke, and they almost always smoke, so it's almost always going to be me. But if in the off chances they don't do it, then Jaco's going to be responsible. So one of the first things I'll probably be saying early on is, hey, they didn't smoke me, Jaco, hey, no smoke or something like that. I'll make it simple, no smoke mid. Jaco should then know to throw the molly. And once again, this is only for the default. But there's a lot of stuff in this default that I'm kind of trying to teach people to do because we can use a lot of this stuff for B executes, for example. So one thing I love doing, okay, and I don't know how practical it is or isn't, okay, but while I come here, I throw this, and then I can come up here to the door and I can throw this molly, right? So what we get is effectively the entire region. Cubbies mollied. We have short smoke and long smoke, and then everything's open. The other four, this is for one of my B takes I like to do. Okay, once again, Jaco would still throw this. As he runs, I can have Dylan still throw this for the entry. And then when everyone gets in, he can throw the pop flash to get in, and then all four run this way, and then they just run out on the site while I got all the smokes up and I got the molly up. So whoever is on site will be like guaranteed out of position. Is the concept behind it, right? While the four players come out of cave and kind of just overwhelm whoever's on site. That's the idea. But I want to break down, but that's not, a default. I'm kind of just going over our default right now. So Anthony would be playing our A side. I'm playing mids, and I'm only going over early game. We're not talking about mid game theory. We're not talking about late game theory. All right. And if for me, I want us to take cave early, and once we take cave, that's kind of the end of our early game phase, our early round phase. Now I'm gonna go over probably the most important role, which is Dylan's role. Dylan is going to purchase 2 flashes, a smoke, and a molly, and they all have a very specific purpose. I'm gonna kind of explain the purpose as we go. Right, so he's going to come out. I want him to make sure he's in front of everybody else, so everyone's going to kind of play behind him, right? That goes this way towards the default. His first task is to line up his crosshair here and to throw the brawly molly. This is going to land there, and this is going to make it very difficult for the CTs to want to push into Jaguar, right? If they do, it's a commitment, right? They're going to run through the molly, and they're going to injure themselves while they probably most likely go in that tight corner, right? Deep corner. So he throws a molly. Okay. Then his first flash is going to be this. This is going to effectively blind everybody that gets in here. I don't even think it blinds the deep corner, but I don't think they get in this deep corner before we will get up there, right? So they're almost guaranteed to be blind. When I've tested this in pugs, this flash does get them. It's just sometimes I'll clear up to here, and then I'll pull out the flashbang kind of before I fully clear, right? That's kind of what's gotten me killed, so I feel like that was happening in our matches too, is that Dylan wouldn't fully clear the corner before kind of deciding, okay, now I'm going to throw my next set of util. Now, remember, no, we're going to stick with Dylan's role for now, okay? So once the molly's gone, okay, so now I'm going to do a quick, fast example of it, and then as we kind of piece everything else together, right? So he throws the brawly molly. He's gonna come up here. He's gonna throw a entry. Ignore that. It goes in, right? He clears. Obviously, he still has that. He holds, waits for that. Now he's gonna call for Jaco to come watch him. Watch this entrance. Hold this in case anyone tries to re-peek. As he comes in, and he throws his pop flash. Bam. Now he's going in. He's checking the corners. He's checking the corner. He's checking the corner. And bam, he stops here. This is the early game, basically. This is kind of what I want Jaco to do super early on. And then obviously, as you can see, he'll only have a smoke left, and that's for the execute, right? That's for the execute, but we're not going to get to that part because that's kind of like our mid game. That's when we've decided to do something. That's when we've decided to kind of move forward with the plan. we're gonna now go over Jaco's role in this. Okay, so Jaco's kind of really needs to kind of work with Dylan a lot in this. You guys need to make sure you're communicating, working with each other, because it's really important that you guys are kind of working with one another. Because I'm kind of using you both to take cave. So you come up, right? Dylan has his util, has his set util. He's going to be in front of you. You're going to kind of let him do his thing. So if he stops here to line up his molly, let him do his thing. Give him some time, right? You come up here, and remember, for now, I'm just going to say this is standard, right? You're going to throw the standard. Now it's going to be based off of me. If I can throw the shelf molly from mid, then you don't worry about it. But if I can't throw the shelf molly from mid, because they didn't smoke it or something like that, and now, I'd be at risk throwing it. That's your responsibility. You need to throw it. You need to hold it. While you hold it, right? You're always sitting here. You're prepping for it. You're waiting for it. You're waiting for the push. You're waiting for anyone to jump up. Dylan obviously is clearing Jaguar. Once he clears Jaguar, he's gonna call for your help. So you hold. Okay, he needs you. Okay, so now you're gonna come in here. You're holding. This is when he throws the pop flash. When he throws the pop flash, you're kind of waiting behind him. He peeks, you peek. You're only watching for the repeat cave. You're not worrying about the corners. That's Dylan's responsibility. You're only holding for the repeat cave, or let's say he goes down to the corner player, then you would trade him, and then now you're in the cave, right? The goal is to take cave. That's the goal. The goal is to kind of claim cave. Now there was a couple of moments I remember you guys were talking about how they throw the shelf util, right? They throw the shelf util and it would stop you guys. That's fine. Okay? That's totally okay. Because once again, if that's the case, they're probably also throwing the smoke. So I'm also throwing my molly on shelf, which means you guys can just hold this and wait, right? Don't feel like you need to rush it. The whole purpose of the flashes is to ensure that when you're ready to push in, you have the util to be able to push in. And now, obviously, I think the only problem with that is that this flash doesn't go deep enough to blind anyone who's holding the corner. Okay? So, I mean, obviously, I think that's not the end of the world if you guys play slow like that. If you get slowed down by the shelf molly, I don't think it's the end of the world, because by then I should have control of it, right? I should have thrown my molly. Jaco can probably throw his after mine expires. He moves in, and then the two of you would just swing. You guys would double swing basically into cave. Because you're late. You know there's a chance someone's already in there. You know this flash isn't going to full peek that corner. So the two of you would obviously swing then, right? So Dylan would do a wide swing, Jacob would do a quick swing, just to make sure that corner is clear. And then you would kind of revert back to what you were doing before, where now, oh fuck, let me check to make sure. Dylan kind of falls back in this position when he's ready to throw the flash. Jacob would then hold, and then you guys kind of go back to the standard operating procedures, right? But the goal of me setting this up is to kind of help encourage util flashes, specifically to encourage you guys to use flashes more, and to not feel overwhelmed when they do something that kind of messes with your guys' planning, right? Because once again, my lineups aren't great, but you don't need to drop a smoke to push this, right? So you can keep your timings going. You don't need to do that. I don't think it's essential. I think that really fucks up everybody else too if you try and do it really fast like this, because now Jaco has to run through this, and pray to Jesus nobody ran jump up during that time. He was kind of cut off from his vision of jump up. So it's I'd rather you guys wait for the molly. I'd rather you guys maybe just slow it down for a second, because the idea behind these flashes is to give you guys the opportunity to peek and to clear, right? And if you do have to stop because of this molly, and you guys are slowed down because of it, right? Make sure you double swing into the corner to make sure you guys clear the corner. So that he has to shoot 2 targets instead of 1. Okay? That's kind of how I see it. That's something you guys need to obviously communicate with each other a lot. Between Jacob and Dylan, you guys really need to communicate with each other to make sure you're kind of doing this stuff so that we don't make unnecessary like individual plays to get both players killed. Now, once again, I couldn't watch the demo that we did last night because it wasn't saved on anything. It seems like I couldn't find it, so it's just based off of the conversations we had, stuff like that, right? That's kind of what I want the two of you to do super early on. Okay? Take cave. That's basically it. Okay? For Stack, your responsibility is to basically give them space to let them do their work and make sure no CTs are pushing. Okay? So you're basically just holding here, you're watching ramp, you're making sure no one's pushing. Don't make any unnecessary peaks, you know? And you're going to be just kind of, instead of the specific util I got for Jaco and Dylan, which is the 2 flashes, the smoke, and the molly, you're going to have one of each, right? You're going to be a bit more varied. You're going to have a little bit more util to you. You can probably throw a nade if you're desperate. If they're shooting or something, you can throw a nade, to maybe get some free damage off them. But your job early game is kind of the same as what Anthony's doing. You're there just to hold like map control and make sure that we don't lose this to the CTs as we work cave. And as I'm kind of either holding mid, throwing the molly mid, making sure they're not doing fast rotates if I can stop it, of course, right? That's the idea, okay? And we made some. Okay, that's my standard early game default. Now the thing is, what happens? Let's say we fail to take cave, right? So let's say both Jaco and Dylan die. They fail to take cave. We lose cave control. Stack, I would want you in that situation because this did happen a couple of times, right? If they both die, somebody's Jaguar. They played aggressive. They're peeking. So I don't want you here because now you're completely isolated by the rest of the team. So basically, if they both die, I want you, Stack, to retreat back through T-spawn and basically group up with me and with Anthony and I, right? Make sure the 3 of us are together, and then we can figure something out from here, either pushing mid or pushing A. Because remember, between the 3 of us, Anthony and Stack would still have full set of util. So we could still do a proper execute. I should still have a smoke. I should still have a flash. I should still have a nade. Maybe I'll probably do one of each as well. So that still gives us a lot of utility potential to be able to push either mid or push A site, depending on how many picks we got in the fighting and stuff like that. Maybe I got a couple kills mid, but then both my players died cave. But that's kind of what I want done. Is if our cave players fail and both die, then you would basically instantly fall back and regroup with the team. A side kind of mid. That way, with the 3 of us grouped, I can go, okay, well, how much util do we have? What do we have? What can I do? Okay, well, we have this much. Okay, Stack, I'm gonna have you flash mid. So as you're coming this way, you would stop here, and then you would throw this flash, as Anthony and I would then push mid, right? I could probably double it up with this flash here. And then we would push. I'd probably throw a smoke towards cave since I know we lost control of that while you're throwing your flash to make sure we can safely push. There's kind of a lot on the fly, but it's really important that you guys understand the sort of fail-safe decisions that need to happen depending on how the round collapses, right? Let's say they don't smoke it. I peek with an op. I miss my shot and I die. All of a sudden, Anthony's by himself, right? But we successfully took cave. Anthony would basically, you're gonna kind of do the same thing, right? If I die mid, you fall back through T-spawn, and then you kind of group up with the team over here, and then you guys would execute B site, right? Or I'll have them execute B site quick, but you would just instantly turn around and try and get the fuck out of dodge. I don't like the idea of us getting isolated and making sure that we're always kind of together. Now, early on, of course, this is kind of our default. This is our stuff. But I think that happened a few times in our last match where I think I fucked up an off shot at one point and I got killed, and Anthony kind of didn't know what to do. So I think he kind of pushed up and then he kind of cemented his inability to regroup with the team. So always kind of pay attention to that. So if I die mid, Anthony, you would fall back. If our two cave players die trying to fight for cave, stack, you would basically instantly fall back, and you'd group up with us, so that we can always sort of kind of attack somewhere, I guess, right? Because if they isolate us like that, you're gonna what? You're gonna maybe get one kill before they trade you. You know, I don't think it's worth it to try and play that type of game when there's no real way to get you out of there. But so let's talk about. So those are kind of the fail safes. If we play default, if the cave player dies, I want stack to kind of do that. If I die mid, then I would want Anthony to do that. So you guys can use your util, right? So you guys can use your util for executes. So you could use your util to make a proper impact instead of being completely isolated and then being like, fuck, well, I'll just lurk, right? And then, well, you're lurking, you don't want to alert your presence to them, but oh, fuck, okay, I hear a lot of people, let me throw a smoke, a main maybe. But then now it's like, what's the point of it, you know? So, when, so yeah, right, so we got our fail safes, we got kind of the fallback situation. Let's talk about, let's say if we were successful and I want to do a B execute, right? Because now remember, Dylan should only have a smoke left, right? And his job, once he takes this, is to hold this. Right? Because now Jaco should have 2 flashes and a smoke still. So he can use his util to now... Not that one. Okay. So he can now, bam, and then the 2 would double swing long. Okay, let's say they didn't kill anybody, they did kill someone, it doesn't matter. Jaco, you're throwing this smoke, and then Dylan is throwing the short smoke. Bam, you guys got total control, right? And Stack can start making his way up. Or Stack, you know, and what this is kind of the thing, right? You need to, I feel like you guys really need to learn your util, because let's say we are making the execute, right? You could fall back for a second, and you can throw this. You could throw the cubby molly. And then you can push up, and then you can help them as they shit, as they do their stuff. But let's say you don't have a molly. Let's say we didn't have that kind of money, but Dylan still has his flashes. Okay, when they secure this, right? There's almost always someone fucking cubby. It feels like he could throw his flash, and then you guys would triple swing onto the cubby player to make sure we kill that cubby player before we can plant, right? That's kind of the idea behind it. Stack is, you're given a lot of freedom in this because I have the intent use. These guys have specific use util on the B execute, right? Dylan is using his util to take cave, and then Jaco has this util to be able to sort of, you know, push and take site. So you and your set of util is there, depending, it's like up to you, you know, and this is kind of why I feel like you guys really need to learn your util use instead of being as dependent on me as you are, because you could throw this cubby mod, right? Let's say they're doing their initial first peek, right? You could throw this out there to kind of provide a little bit of support for them. As they peek that way, you can peek this way, you know? Well, I'd rather you not do any peeking, but maybe throwing a double flash and then kind of supporting short maybe is something you could do. But then again, I want you to make sure you're alive. So maybe just throw the flash, right? To help your team get out. And then when he throws the second flash, after they throw their smokes, obviously, right? When they throw their second flash to kind of peek into cubby, you would swing in with them swinging into cubby to clear cubby, and then you focus long. Now you've got your smoke, right? Now you've got a nade. So let's say you hear him long. You can throw that long nade, right? You could sit, you could wait. Oh fuck, okay, the short smoke's starting to dissipate. Let me set up another short smoke. You're kind of there to kind of be that extra util for them. You're there for the triple swing. You're there to kind of help ensure that we do take B site. You're kind of the person that they're not going to be expecting because of the fact that we're making so much noise cave. You're going to be given a fuck ton of freedom to sort of figure out how to provide support for them, right? To sort of figure out how to provide support for them. And and to keep the CTs off balance. You're a huge orchestrator in sort of making sure that we do successfully take B, and your util is there to really kind of provide that support. Okay, that's kind of the idea behind it. During that time, and Anthony and I would probably just be running through T-spawn to kind of group up with you guys, or maybe I did get a pick. I could probably throw something like this. Okay, not that one. No, not that one. Okay. I forgot it. It's okay. There used to be a smoke you could throw that it was like right here. I think I might be aiming too high. Maybe. Well, still. Okay, I could throw a smoke in red room and then keep an eye on there, and then Anthony and I would then go up, jump up to group up with you guys B. That's kind of how that would be. For Anthony, your purpose is kind of really loose also. So kind of how Stack doesn't have any real major direction because he's kind of there to kind of help ensure that we do take B by using his utility to kind of provide support to what is going on site depending on what our team is doing in cave. You are largely there to just make sure we don't get flanked. And then let's say I do want to go A, right? So if I wanted to go A after this execute, let's say we successfully took cave, but we got no picks, or I got a pick B, or I got 2 picks B, or not B, but mid, right? So Jayco's all of his util would be totally different, right? So he'd come out here, he'd be able to throw this. Nope, that's not the right one. I fucked it up. I got my clicks backwards. He'd come out there, he'd throw that, he'd help me push for mid control, and then he could throw a donut smoke here, just right above that. Am I retarded? Is it a jump throw? Hold on. No, it's not a jump throw. What the hell? What the hell? There we go. Okay, yeah. So he okay, so he could throw like a donut smoke, and then we could both swing mid red room and kind of handle red room, and then meanwhile Anthony would start kind of crawling up A side, right? And he's kind of going through, he's clearing his corners, he's making sure no one was creeping up kind of same time he was creeping up, because that did happen a couple of times in one of our matches. And then when he gets here, right? Our team should be here in Donut fighting in Donut. Right? Once we get Donut, we're going to stop. Because Dylan is going to throw, and I didn't... See, I'm kind of doing it out of order. I'm kind of doing things out of order. Okay, so before he creeps up and starts lurking, right? And starts kind of pushing towards A, he's going to throw a Donut smoke. This is why I didn't mention. I did things out of order. Right? So I call for A. You know, donut to A, whatever, right? He's still holding this. We took cave. They're going to start rotating mid and do all that stuff. He's going to come this way, and he's going to throw his donut smoke. This is really important. Really, really, really important. And I know someone's probably like, oh, man, why are you smoking your team off? You know, like, why would you smoke your team off? Well, while he's doing this, we're working our way towards donut, right? And then once we get in donut, he should be up here, and then he would throw this flash. And he's going to time it with us, because we're going to throw a flash through smoke too. So he throws this flash, we throw a flash through smoke, and then he's peeking this while we're kind of pushing on site. The concept behind that is the CTs that are on A site won't see us. Donut. They'll probably spam, but they won't see us donut. And we will be able to kind of safely push up, sort of like hallway basically. And then when we're ready to push through, we let Anthony know, and then we would drop a flash. We push through. Same time he's throwing his flash, and he's kind of pushing on site, which is going to kind of force the CT defenders to split their attention. And if they look at us, he'll be able to walk out and kind of get the kills. If they look at him, we'll be able to walk out and get kills. Is the idea behind it. And of course, once we do get up, you know, we could throw a CT smoke. We could kind of do some stuff before we throw our flash to get out. And this is stuff that we do need to like dry run. I feel like I keep saying it all the time, and whenever we do get everyone together, I'll talk about the stuff, but we don't get everybody on the same like practice server to actually practice. Um, without so that we understand what we should be doing in those situations. One of my favorite plays, okay, is sort of mid red room to A or B. Uh, and so I've been kind of coming up with some stuff. Now, obviously, I'm still going to throw the standard red room smoke, but I'm going to throw this flash too. And remember, I'm throwing this flash around the time my team is up here. So I'm going to be a little behind, but that's fine, right? They're going to come out. They're going to spam. They're going to spam. They're going to kind of make their way up through. They're going to run through red room. If they have a nade, I want them to nade red room also. And then as we run through, we get a pick. Okay, cool. We're going A. If we get a pick towards, if we don't get a pick, then we're gonna go B. And we're gonna kind of make our way that way. So I've been kind of messing with the kind of more util stuff I can do to sort of support the team. I think this is a really good flash. I think that it's going to really help us be able to take mid control a lot more often and easier. And it'll really allow our team to kind of get out and make some work happen. And of course, my favorite my favorite thing is my 4-man cave B execute. Now the thing is, one of the things I've been really pushing is these flashes with Dylan and Jaco, and of course Somali. And then this is one of the reasons why is because when we do B executes, right, they can still use these utils to help us. Jaco can still throw this shelf molly, right? Dylan can still come in and he can throw this entry flash to get us in there. And then when we all get in, he can throw this pop flash to kind of keep pushing us deeper and deeper in. So there's a reason why I'm having them with very specific util and making sure they know this very specific util, because we'll be able to really utilize these every time we want to work our way towards B. Because even if we don't have a 4-man stack, let's say we do like a B split, right? So I'll send maybe 3 cave, or I'll send 2 cave. Dylan will probably almost always go cave. It'll be Jaco and Dylan basically almost always going cave. And then those two can kind of do their util set to get in the cave. All the rest of us are just kind of throwing flashes on site, throwing a nade down long, making our way out. I can throw the Cubby Molly. There's a, and I feel like it'll really help us if we actually really utilize, utilizing pop flashes more, utilizing our ability to get into sites better. One thing that's been really hurting us is our post plants. Even that game, I saw a couple of times our post plants were really weak, but how, A site's really interesting because I don't think there's a really easy way to have a really strong post plant. From what I've seen, what seems to work, right, is we get our bomb down here. When we get a bomb planted here, it seems like some of the stronger positions we can set up is having a person here, having a person here, because then they can support each other temple, right? He can kind of fight for temple. As long as he doesn't peek donut, that's the really important thing. Whoever plays this position needs to not peek. And then whoever's got this position is mainly watching temple. He's kind of playing around the box, kind of making sure that doesn't happen. And then the rest of the team would basically be main. Is the way I see it. I don't know how else to do it. We could put one person donut, but it'd be so exposed. And it's the most like fought for spot on the retake. Like almost all the demos, there's almost always CTs rotating from B site through mid into donut. There's almost always a fight in donut. So if I sent one person donut, it's almost a guaranteed death. It feels like he might get a kill. He might win his duels, but I feel like he's just gonna die. And I need our team to kind of live. I need our team to live to make sure that we don't get cooked. But the problem is that I've been having, and I don't know how to kind of fix it, is that it's really easy to it's really easy to retake a site. Like it's crazy easy, right? You just have the CTs go this way, okay, with their shit, and they can just fucking do this. They can throw these, and then they can throw this molly. Okay, that was a little short. Hold on. And then look at this shit. I mean, that's okay. I wasn't aiming at the right spot, it seems, but it was gonna land up there. But they can smoke off super easy these positions and be able to kind of retake site. So if I sent 3 people A main, we'd be fighting against a smoke, you know, and I don't know how much util we'd have. If we did a default to A, we'd probably be really weak on util use. So I don't know if it's a good idea to have 3 people A main. You know what I mean? Maybe 1 person A main, and then we could do 1 person big box, right? 1 person temple. And then these two could really work together, I think, because let's say whoever's donut is shooting at the big box player. You know, he's like, oh fuck, okay, one big box. This guy can peek and kill the big box guy, right? Or kill the donut guy, right? So there's a lot of madness. Okay, there's a lot of madness. I don't know if there's enough. Well, just be careful out there, hun. But okay, but so okay, we could probably put one here, boost, and he can kind of sit here, maybe. I don't know. That's kind of the problem. Is if we could probably do that, where we could heavy stack this back corner. One here. One would be big box, who's mainly watching this. Which, of course, if he sees anybody, this guy can swing, get the trade. We could have one here, I guess, right? So we're kind of doubling up. But he's super exposed. So, of course, he sees someone. This guy would have to swing and make sure that, you know, we're almost double swinging. We can then have 2, 1 A main. And then we can probably have 1 fight donut. But this is the thing. I mean, it's not a bad concept, but it's also, it just feels like we're too exposed. A site's really difficult for me because B site's nice. I kind of like B site, right? And I like what we've been doing on our post plans on B site. Because what we've been doing lately is we have 2 people in cave, right? We'll have like Jaco and then Dylan kind of holding inside cave, and then we'll have like 2 people ramp, 1 up front, and then 1 in the back watching the flank area. And then if the 5th does survive, right, he could be back here too, watching the flank. He can spam through boxes. Let's say if we got bombed down and we did lose control, he could just throw this. I lied, not that one. I'm crazy. He can throw this and kind of extend it, but of course most people tend to have smokes for this anyways, so I don't know how useful that would be. But I like B's post plant. A's post plant, it's I don't know, because like I said, we could put a person here, but it almost might be better to have maybe 2 people up in temple. Because we can have 1 here, we can have 1 peek in case he goes down. This guy just stays quiet, and then, you know, they most likely won't suspect a second person. But he'd probably get, what, a kill before he'd get swung on and die. It's I don't know. Maybe we could have 2 main as like 1 deep back as a backup guy. 1 here. 1 here. I could probably just put 1 in cave. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then our 5th, I guess, could just be boost if he wants, right? Our 5th can do whatever the fuck he wants. He can go donut. I don't really care, right? Because yeah, we've been struggling a lot with our post plants on A site, so I think I might have us try that. You know, if we just play 1 big box, 1 in temple. Okay, to make sure this is really secure, because they're both these guys are going to be watching it, right? They're both going to be kind of holding temple. And then our 2A main is basically just waiting for the push up. But they could also just watch this, make sure no one gets pushed from that, right? So we could have this guy here to make sure no one's peeking or pushing our big box player. It's a little hard, to kind of come up with because there's not a lot of options. It feels like on this map. I'm still having a lot of difficulty with it. I'm still trying to figure out how to like best approach it. But I mean, it is what it is, right? We'll see. Maybe in practice we can do it. But I'm trying to think. What have I not done? What have I not gone over? Like just a straight A execute, but I don't need to do anything crazy for that, right? Because I can throw one here. I can throw the CT smoke here. You know, and then we can run up. And we can have our donut player, and we can have a donut smoke here. Come in, we throw this flash, and then we can just, because normally they smoke us off, right? So we could throw this boost molly, and then we could push sight. Maybe have another person throw a molly in temple, and then that would basically give us a lot of control over sight. I don't see A site too difficult in terms of like the complexity of what we need to do. It's just more we need to make sure that we know who's throwing what. But I think that's something more of a I need to call out who's doing it, you know? I need to make sure we all know our positions and who's throwing the util and who has the util to do it. Once again, if there's no smoke, I guess that's not a big deal. And then bam. I fucked up my donut smoke, but that's fine. But it's okay. I don't really know, but I think that's everything. I think that's everything we talked about. The only other thing I can think of is just a direct B execute I'd probably want to call. But it's so simple, it's kind of stupid. And it, you know, once again, it's always the same stuff. I'm just going to throw the util. You guys rush up ramp. I'm going to come in. I don't even need to throw this if we're doing a fast ramp, by the way. Think how slow that is, you know? And then bam. You guys should already be on site. You guys should already be planning. I think that's kind of a pointless piece of util on that. Unless I have them wait for the molly. But then they'd be exposed to this. But Jaco should be throwing the jump up molly and watching that. So yeah. That's that. That's kind of everything. I think I went over everything, yeah? Among my ramblings, on our T side, at least, on our T side, for CT, it's like, I've already kind of gone over all the stuff, and I feel like everyone's fairly capable at all the things that we've gone over. For example, because I'll show you, right? So Anthony's our long player, Dylan's our cave player, Jaco and I go mids, then Stack is A, right? So Anthony really only has a couple specific util I want him to use basically every round, which is just this molly and nade, right? Bam, and then he's up there. He can choose to throw a smoke if he wants to, so he can kind of push up. But his main responsibility is to sit here slant and kind of play defense and make sure no one takes sight. Dylan has a very similar set of util, almost exact, if I'll be honest, where he's got a molly and nade throw I expect him to use. Where he comes up, he comes this way, he throws this, throws, not that, that, and then he pushes up and fights for cave. Now this is really important because we've been having some issues with it. When this happens and he gets in the cave, he's gonna be kind of working with Jaco, who's going jump up. So they need to make sure they're once again communicating with each other, right? And then when they choose to swing, Dylan, you're swinging short. You aren't going very long because by the time Jaco gets up here, he's gonna swing wide. So that's kind of just that. We'll go over, I guess, Jaco's position. So Jaco's coming this way. We've been doing it mixed. Sometimes he'll throw this, not that one, I think it's a W throw. He does a W smoke, runs up, gets a nade, throws the nades, da-da-da, we'll fight for mid control or whatever, and then he goes jump up, right? So once we've kind of secured mid, he goes jump up. He's going to be worried. He doesn't expose himself, right? try not to expose yourself too deep into for too long into mid. You creep up, you communicate with Dylan, da da da. You guys would swing together, right? Once again, you're doing the wide swing. Dylan is doing a short swing. And then for me, I am throwing a molly to stop a rush. Da 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 da. Throwing the molly to stop a rush. Da da da. If I don't see anybody immediately by the time I get down here, I'll throw grenades, and then we kind of fight for mid, and then I hold mid, right? Once it's kind of ours, I'll throw the smoke, and then I'm gonna come up with Jaco, and then I hold mid while they kind of fight for for shelf and stuff like that, right? Backside B. So and Stack, bro is just roasting marshmallows. He doesn't have a whole lot to do. I give him a lot of freedom. Because his responsibility is mainly just survive and hold info and make sure they don't take this for free. But I'll show kind of what I do is I throw a smoke, I come up this way, and then I hold. I see him sometimes holding here, kind of in the self boost. Fuck. The self boost, and sometimes he'll sit self boost, sometimes he sits here, sometimes he sits big box. It's really up to him to decide how to play it, because once again, he's gonna be by himself. He just needs to hold information, maybe get a quick pick, and then fall back temple, and then wait for like backup, right? That's mainly his job on A site is hold it, get the first kill, run away, and then just kind of hide in temple and wait for assistance. I don't know if he should fall all the way back if he's going to be able to survive that, or if he just should sit in this and then let them kind of peek him. Maybe he could get a second kill before going down. I don't know how to particularly approach that either, but that's mainly his goal. Is it just hold out and survive as long as possible as Jaco and I go from mid to donut, to which we would then hold up sort of across here and then wait for them to kind of push. CT's a lot easier, I feel like, but at the same time, it's really, really risky the way I like to play it because we're putting a lot of pressure mid. We're putting a lot of utility towards taking mids. We're trying to fight for this stuff. And then, of course, if we successfully take mid, then I send Jaco up to take like the little back alley with Dylan so that they can kind of clear this. It's super risky, and our success rate on our CT side since we started doing this has been kind of 50-50, it feels like. And it's really a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it's me. A good portion of times it's actually me because I'll come out with an op and I come down, I miss my first shot, I take a step back, I'll throw my grenade, I'll re-peek, I'll miss my op shot, oh fuck, now they're pushing out sight, I miss a third shot, I miss a fourth shot, and then I'm dead. That's happened too many times for me to really not mention that. Is that I've been when I get in this position, I seem to really struggle with my op shots for some reason. And it's something I definitely need to work on. But the other major part that's really been kind of faltering for us is this part too. Sometimes, and they've been getting better at it, right? I'm not, this is something we need to practice. It's something we need to work on. But they don't always kind of do it together. Sometimes Jaco gets here before Dylan gets here, and he's kind of taking the fights, and then he'll die before Dylan's even in position to kind of start fighting too. It's been a pretty back and forth thing. It's been a lot of work, but it's because I feel like the CT side, I am trying to set up something a little bit more complex than what we probably should be doing in a Silver League. But at the same time, we've been playing against fairly high level players comparatively to us, right? Doing it, and we're getting a 50-50 success rate. Our success rate is 50%. But when we play lower tier players, I feel like this would be too much for them to be able to handle. I don't think they know even how to fight against this. They probably start trying to throw grenades or something, or maybe they'll try and start throwing mollies. But if that's the case, they're slowing themselves down, right? They're sacrificing their own map control And that gives us a lot more comfort and freedom to be able to kind of dictate when we want to fight this. It gives us a lot more comfort to maybe, okay, well, you know what, Jacob, let's take elbow, let's push elbow, and then I'll have stack maybe start working towards this so that we can get map control this way, right? So our CT side, it's really interesting because I feel like what I want us to do isn't terrible, but we just need to refine how we do it. So for example, I need to learn the instant smokes. I'm gonna have Jaco probably learn the instant smokes. Oh, once again, I fucked it up. I think it's a W. Learn the instant smokes, because if we learn the instant smokes, I think. Oh my god. Okay. Wow, you could throw that shit far. But nonetheless, right? If the two of us can learn the instant smokes, even though I don't personally ever throw the smoke, Jaco does. I could show him where to do it, maybe, right? Maybe he forgets. But it would allow him to get his smoke out. I could throw the molly. It'd be a bigger, like, limiting factor for the CTs to maybe not, for the Ts to maybe not want to push if they encounter, like, a deep smoke. And then as soon as they get beyond the smoke, there's a molly waiting for them, right? And then we'd be able to kind of take side easier because the smoke is up. Jaco can just kind of run up and start helping towards the back alley, B-side alley. It's all these things that, you know, it's more about refining our gameplay. I like the concept of being really aggressive CT. I think on Ancient you really need to kind of push to maintain map control, especially for mid, because if we lose mid, it gives the T's so much freedom to sort of just rotate to whatever site they want. But at the same time, we do have a 50% success rate on our CT side. It genuinely feels like some of our weakest stuff. However, I will say, when I'm hitting my shots mid with the op, when we're successfully like taking mid control and we're successfully like doing damage, and Jaco can come up here and he's successfully hitting shots and he's getting 1 or 2 kills, you know, it feels really good. When this plan works, this plan really, really works. And that's kind of why I keep kind of wanting us to refine it. You know, I need to make sure that we're getting better with our communication in terms of how, you know, everyone's kind of working with each other. Once again, Jaco and Dylan are almost always working with one another. So I really need them to get good with their communication with each other. Okay, you too? Make sure you're fucking working with one another, huh? But that's kind of everything. That's kind of the stuff. I feel like one of the biggest inhibitors of both T and CT side is just comms. And making sure we don't feel stressed out or that we need to move fast, right? Yes, I want, so for example, right, for CT, I want us to take mid control. I want us to get our stuff there. I want Jaco to get up here towards shelf, okay? But if they're throwing util, if they're throwing mollies, if they're trying to stop us from pushing them, that gives us space to get into position. That gives us space, you know, space for Dylan to get here and for Dylan to get here and Jaco to get there. And then as soon as that stuff's gone, right? Throw out a flash, and then you guys can swing, right? So just try to play the game slower. I feel, to be honest, is something I might want to start trying to tell them. On our T side in particular, I feel like they were trying to move too fast. Dylan was telling me he was missing this molly a lot. He felt like he wasn't able to really do his stuff. He felt like he told me he couldn't keep up with Dylan when Dylan was kind of making his plays, and sometimes he would go in by himself and die, and then Jaco would still be back here, you know, trying to catch up with him. And so I think it's really important to note that I have this system, this structure I set up for our default on T side, right? I have it here so you guys know what type of util I want you to use. But I want you to kind of take your time to do it. I want Dylan to kind of stop for a second to throw the molly, right? I want him to stop for a second to make sure he's throwing a flashbang that's going to work well for him. right? I want him to stop for a second to make sure that he knows how to actually like do this pop flash, and then to actually know where his positions that he needs to be aiming for are. You know, I I don't want you guys just trying to rush through it to try and get it over with. You guys need to make slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Always have that sense of urgency, but don't do it to a point where you're sacrificing your ability to fight to try and get done what you know you need to get done, right? Because I feel like that's something that was really hurting us on our T side. And they were telling me, oh man, this Molly's just not working. They're getting jump up. They're da da da. Or oh man, we couldn't move fast because they threw the shelf Molly. And then we were like, oh fuck, what do we do now? And I'm kind of sitting there. I'm like, well, you can stop, right? Just stop. Let the Molly go out, because that's the purpose of the pop flash. That's why I'm having you guys do this flash, so you can still get in and peek and then kill the player. Once you're in position, let Jaco know, hey man, I'm gonna throw a flash. Then he comes up, he holds, and then you throw this. This isn't a system where you move super fast and then you try to like get stuff done as quick as possible. It's a system to know how to entry into these positions and to make sure that you guys are actually prepped and ready when you're ready for the next stage. Don't rush the steps. Okay? Um, Make sure you guys are doing them right. Make sure you guys are communicating properly. Make sure you guys are doing your stuff right, right? Jaco, you're watching this until he's ready to do the flash. And then you kind of shift over and you hold as as he goes to throw it. He does all of his little corner peeks, and then Jaco, all you're literally doing is just coming in and you're holding for the repeak, right? Don't overcomplicate the process, because the process is already fairly I feel like I made it fairly complicated as it is. And even though I think individually everyone has their own kind of things they're working on that they just need to do, right? But it feels like you guys are trying to do it too fast, And even I caught myself doing it in some of my pugs sometimes when I was testing this out, where I would do this entry flash, right? And I'd come in and I'd swing, and I'd literally get right here. I won't even clear it. I get right here, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna throw my flash right as I finish peeking, and there's a dude in the corner. I'm like, oh, I gotta flash my hand. um, so just slow it down. Slow it down to where you feel comfortable throwing this, and then you move up. Because realistically, it's I mean how. Ooh, that's a bad one. You see? Don't go too fast. Don't go too fast. Make sure you're doing it right. Make sure the util you're using is gonna land where it needs to land. Because if you guys rush yourself, you're kind of opening yourself up to more mistakes. So just kind of slow it down. Slow, smooth, and smooth as fast. Make sure you guys are communicating. Make sure you guys know what you're all doing. Make sure you guys aren't going so fast where you're missing the brawly molly. Make sure you're not going so fast and when you throw this flashbang, it's too high and it doesn't even go inside the inside Jaguar. And yeah, but I want us all to get together a couple of times, I think. And just get into an empty map, all 5 of us, and then we dry run these, right? We get together, we're all gonna send spawn, and I'm gonna go, okay, let's do an A execute. Okay, we're gonna go mid to B. We're gonna go mid red room to A. Okay, we're gonna play default. Okay, how does default look? What are we doing default? Stat comes here. He's holding. He's not peeking. He's holding. It's all this stuff where I want us to get practice in to make sure that we know what we need. What we need to do. We're not getting confused. We're not getting flustered. I mean, Anthony and Stack have it pretty fucking easy. Until it's not, right? You have it pretty easy until it's not. But I don't want you guys kind of tripping over yourselves trying to get everything done. Understand that you have the time, because as T's, we dictate when we're the dictators of the match. We dictate when we engage. You know, they can try and slow us, but they, you know, unless they're counter pushing, right? We're given total freedom to decide when we choose to push. Um, they're the ones that are responsible for defending. So for the most part, unless we're just being absolutely disrespected, we need to make sure that we're not messing that up, right? Something else I want to also point out, because I did see it in a couple of demos, is sometimes you guys will just sit there with your nades in your hands. If they throw this molly, they don't hear you burn, they probably already know you're not, you didn't push past it, right? So they're probably going to push Jaguar. So instead of sitting there with a nade in your hand waiting to be able to kind of do your thing, right? Keep your weapon out and hold the angle, you know, with Jaco and Dylan, so that if they do try to counter push, you guys are ready for it. And then when you guys are ready to make your push, then you pull the flash out, then you do your engage. Make sure you full swing and clear the corner before you do your stuff, right? Take your time. You know, realistically, it's just a slow things down, man. Slow things down. Don't try to get the stuff done. You know, try to make sure you're doing what you're doing correct. And yeah, that's. I think that's it. I think that's everything on this map so far, right? I think we're all doing excellent. Our Dust 2 game, I mean, I'm really happy with how we played Dust 2. Ancient's one we all like to play, so that's why I'm putting this, you know, a lot of effort into coming up with how we play Ancient, and you know, all this different util sets, and us actually having specific util I want us to use on our defaults, because it's the one that we seem to always want to play. It seems to be one of the ones we're the most comfortable with. So I want to make sure that we're solid on it. You know, I'm putting a lot more effort in it because all of you seem to like it. So that's kind of everything, though. That's kind of everything so far. When I watch more demos, I might pull up like some specific rounds, and then I'll probably talk about it in these more long form videos. Since once again, Discord only lets me do so much recording, and I have to kind of condense everything into like 30-second videos, and I just don't think it's enough. And this one is like an hour long. I think I spent working on this one, and this is me just rambling. I feel like it's not even that structured. I'm just kind of going over everything. I just hope that with all of this, I managed to kind of convey sort of how I want us to play each individual position. I hope I managed to. And once again, if there's any questions, guys, just let me know, and I'll let you know. But that's it for the video. That's my Ancient kind of T side default, and I guess our standard CT setup too. Without me doing some funky stuff. That's just our standard stuff. So yeah, that's it for now.